Hey everybody. Today we're going to start talking about the queen and bringing the queen into OnShape. Like the video said, and we watched this, like yesterday or the day before, our queen from basically the collar down is the same between the queen and the king. Okay, so the very first thing I did is I just kind of like laid my new drawing next to my old drawing, and I roughly copied the base of the king over to the queen. Okay, I was careful about my dimensions and stuff like that. If you're a little off on this, it won't be the end of the world for later on, but you want to make them as close as possible to begin with. Yeah, the queen is going to be exactly 4 inches tall, including her little finial, which is a ball at the very top. I'm going to create a queen where there's like a dish at the top and this little dome in the middle. We're going to need to like carve away the queen's like crown later on, and I'm going to show you how to do that in this video as well, and I'm going to show you like a few different ways that you can do that. But ultimately here, your queen is going to have like some sort of crown detail on it, and I'll show you how to do that. Then at the very top of your queen again, she's going to have a ball as a finial for the queen. Okay, everybody's going to do a small ball on top of your queen. So the very first thing I did here is I took a picture of this queen, right? And that's all I really care about is like cropping in and getting close to her. And then I opened that thing up in my computer. So when we go to take a screenshot, you know, these instructions are similar to what I gave you before, but I've learned a little bit since people have been doing this. And I've realized that realistically, we want to be like we want to capture the extreme dimensions of our piece. So we want all 2 inches horizontally. So we're starting right at the end of my line here. Starting right at the end of my line here, going to the end of my line here, and vertically, we just want to make sure that we encompass everything. Okay, so I'm going to start nice and tight in the corner there. I'm going to come to the 1 inch mark at this edge here, and I'm going to come up to the point where I'm above the top of my queen. Okay, and I'm going to save this. Again, you probably would save this to your compute or to your drive. I'm just going to save this to be on my desktop for right now, and I'm going to call this the queen. Okay. So we've got that, it's cropped down, and again, there's exactly 4 boxes on the left of the center line and exactly 4 boxes on the right of the center line. The more specific and the more like exact you can make those, the width, the easier it will be to transfer your dimensions over in OnShape. So let's hop into OnShape. So here I am, I'm in OnShape, I'm in my 4.1 king. I changed this to be 4.1 king and queen. And again, the base of the king and the base of the queen are the same. Okay, so we don't really want to start over again. Like there's no need to. So what we're going to do down in the bottom right tab here is we're going to right click and we're going to say duplicates. And then it's going to create a new copy of our king. Okay, and I'm going to right click on this down here and I'm going to say rename, and I'm going to call this queen 2 because I already have like a queen and a queen 1. I've made a bunch of these. And as I go through here, I need to delete basically everything except for sketch 1. Okay, and you know, my sketch 1, the visibility is off, it's hidden. So I'm going to turn my visibility on so I can see it again. And I'm going to jump back into sketch 1 by double clicking on it. And now I can edit this stuff. So the first thing I want to edit is getting rid of my drawing. So I'm going to click on an outside border line and I'm going to delete that. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to delete the lines on top of the king above the collar. The other thing that I'm going to do quick is just reset my default. So my default height is supposed to be 4 inches. Don't really worry too much about the right side of this line. Worry more about the left side, that it is 1 inch from here to here. Okay, so now again, because I was really careful about setting like starting my crop at that like corner of the 1 inch line, When I go to upload this later on, I'll be able to do the same thing. So I'm going to say insert image. And again, in order to see this whole thing, if you go to the ... at the top of your Chrome, and if you zoom down to like 75%, you're going to be able to see this. We are going to import, and I'm going to go, to my desktop, Queen. And it needs to be a PNG or a JPEG file for it to be read. So I have Queen PNG1. I'm going to select this. And just like before, I'm going to start at the bottom left corner. And I'm going to bring this thing up until the height of my object is at the top of my 4-inch line, more or less, right? And I can even like drag this down a little bit. That's pretty good. It seems like it's curved off of here a tiny bit, but that's not the end of the world. So again, drawing the base to be approximately the right size is important, but honestly, we already have this information from our king. So like, despite the fact that my lines don't line up perfectly here, they line up perfectly with what I had before, so I'm not going to mess with them. All right, I'm going to start up here. I'm going to draw a new horizontal line to bring me back to like my junction point here. And I'm going to start to draw the top of my queen's crown. So I have like a vertical line there. I'm going to use a 3-point arc to go from here to here and out. I'm going to use a 3-point arc also to go from here to here and down. Another 3-point arc for that. And for the ball itself, like you can see, like my ball is not on my line. Really, I'm going to start with just a circle. I'm going to start my circle on my line, and I'm going to make like a circle approximately the right dimension. And like drag it up. Okay, so notice I have a little bit of this line above still. That's good because I need something to revolve around. I am going to trim away that half with the trim tool. And notice I got rid of my vertical dimension. I am going to cut away this line here. And now I'm just going to redimension between the top and the bottom. And again, I should be somewhere close to 4 inches, 3.9. Oops, no. What happened there? 3.995, I think it was just that. Yeah. So that gives me basically that. And then I guess I'll trim up these two things too, because again, we really only want the outside. But by putting a circle on my line, I ensure that I'll actually have a circle instead of like a kind of weird oblong shape. So anyways, see I have a disconnection here. This will definitely screw up my pieces later on. I want these two things to be connected. Bingo. Okay. Good. All right, let's hit the checkbox. And let's give it a revolve and let's see if it works. So I select that. Oh, no, that's a sweep. I select that. I select my revolution axis, which is my vertical axis. I'll click check. Okay, so again, you can see like that dish that I've made, right? It goes all the way around, but now it like cups in, and then it comes up to this dome, and then I have this ball sitting on top, right? And again, my ball does not come down to like an exact point. It is kind of flat at the bottom, which again goes back to sketch 1 and the fact that like I had this arc meet the ball before it like met the center line. Okay, so that's all good. So that's the first step to like getting our queen set. Now we need to do some decoration of some sort on the queen's crown. And I'm going to show you guys 2 separate ways to do that. Okay, so let's talk about the first way now. So there's other ways to do this in these 2 ways, but this is just like a good start. You guys can play around with this some more. Okay, so the first thing we need to learn in order to do this today is we need planes. Like I'm going to show you first of all crown shape that looks like this. Okay, where we have these like crowns going around here. In the next one, I'm going to show you a crown that looks like this. These are both based upon the same base drawing that I'm showing you right now, but they're just two different like crown designs on top. Okay, so crown number one, we need both of these. We need to draw on like a plane on the top of our object. So in order to get planes, we're going to select this plane tool right here, and we're going to select the bottom of the object because the bottom of the object is actually flat. Okay, and notice right now we're projecting a plane 1 inch in the downward direction. We can either push this arrow up here to reverse the direction or push this arrow down here to reverse the direction, but we want to build our plane going up. And we want our plane to be just above the top of our queen. So your queen should be less than it should be about 4 inches tall, maybe a little bit less. I'm going to set my offset distance to 4.25 because it's not such a bad thing that it's a little above. You definitely need it to be above your queen. Okay, so set it so that that's above your queen. And then we're going to create a new sketch on that plane. Okay. So now we're drawing on a flat plane. We can't just draw on the top of my queen because I don't have a flat surface. So I need to draw on this flat plane and then I can like project this stuff down. So again, we're going to be producing a thing that looks like a crown that looks like this right now. We have all these like shapes. So when we go through to do this, we're going to first create a polygon tool. Okay, so a polygon is a multi-sided object, right? Like a triangle is a polygon, a square is a polygon, right? And you know, like when I move my mouse, you can see this number changes. I can go all the way from like a triangle to a square to like a 5-sided, 6-sided, 7-sided, 8-sided, like however many sided object you want. I think I'm going to do 12, but you could do it like whatever you want. You also could change this to be like, 14 if you wanted to. It doesn't really matter. So a couple things. Notice the center point of this is not centered on this. So we're going to use the concentric constraints, and we're going to take the center point here, and we're going to select on any one of your like circles from your revolve. And it's going to center this piece directly on there. So that's pretty cool. That'll work. Then as far as the size of this thing is concerned, we want this thing to be, this is like the outside of my crown, that circle right there. I want this to be big enough where the points of my polygon are outside of the square of the piece, but the flats of the polygon are inside. And like I have a 14-sided object, which doesn't give me a lot of play. The smaller, like the less sides your object has, the more adjustment you kind of have within there. All right, so I've created this object. I'm going to create a new circle to go around this object and hit the checkbox. Okay, so I've created this thing now, and the reality is we are going to extrude the outside of this object. So that circle that I just created outside of it, doesn't matter how big it is exactly, it only matters that it is bigger than like the overall size of your queen's head, crown. So I am going to remove material. It says you can't remove material because there's no material up there, so I have to flip my cut around, and I only want that cut to happen across the top here. So I'm going to change this to be like what, 0.5 maybe? Maybe like 0.6. Okay, that's cool. That'll work for me right there just fine. I like how it comes down to like this bow underneath. I'm going to click the checkbox. Okay, so that's one way that we can start to design this thing, right? And I can, like, if you don't like the way that that looks, then mess around with your sketch some more, right? Just open up my sketch. I can like change the position of like how big that is, and I can click check again. Now I can like look back and see what this thing looks like. All right. So that's like one crown design, right? And I could go back and edit my other sketches and tweak things too, but that's one crown design right there. All right, so let's move on to our second crown design today, which is going to be just like cutting these notches into our crown. All right, so I'm going to come back to my crown. I'm going to extrude what I'm going to delete what I just did in both sketches. But I still need to go through and create a plane. Again, from the bottom, coming up 4 inches, right? So we're going to flip this thing around. We're going to change this offset. It's actually bigger than 4.125 or 4.25, either way. And then you're going to create your sketch on that plane that you just created, okay? So we're going to create a sketch on this plane. Bingo. So let's flip around to the top. So for this one, we're going to create these like pie cuts, and then we're going to do a circular array to create those pie cuts multiple times. All right, so I am just going to roughly start in the center of my circle. We're going to go back through with a concentric constraint again, and I am going to create a triangle. Okay, and again, I'm going to select concentric. I'm going to select any one of my circles on my queen's head, and then I'm going to select the center point of my triangle. And now that point there is centered on that circle that I just selected. Now, I want my triangle to be even. So vertically here, I'm going to dimension this thing to be like 0.125. I'm going to dimension between here and the center here. To be 0.125. Again, now that I've like dimensioned that, I need to pull this thing out a little bit. All right, so one thing also, like I really don't want to trim all the way to the back. Like I only want to like cut out like the outside section of my queen's head. So I'm gonna like position this line here, which will be like where I stop the extrusion ultimately. I'll show you what I mean. But now we need to like repeat this thing around the queen's head. So up top here, there's what's called a linear pattern, which is like a rectangular pattern thing. Underneath of that, there is a circular pattern. That's what we want for today. It's a circular pattern. So first it asks me, what objects do I want to pattern? And I want to pattern that object, this object, and this object. And you can see now all of those objects are being repeated 3 times, okay? I'm going to increase this to maybe be like 10 times or whatever. Again, you can kind of like tweak this as you go through. But now basically we have like almost the spokes of a wheel, okay? And again, that's drawn above our object above. So when we finish that sketch now, we can go to Shift and E for extrude. And we can start to cut all of these objects down. So again, as we look at this thing, we want to remove, and again, it's flipped it around, so flip it back. And again, we don't want to cut like all the way into the bottom there. We really just want to cut like across the top. So change this dimension to something that works better for you. So like 0.5 brings me right there, which is actually quite nice, I think. So I'm going to leave it at that, but I could also change it, right? I could say, no, I want it to go down a little bit further, 0.6. Then I could like preview what that looks like. Well, honestly, I think that 0.5 was like, for me, perfect. For you, it's going to be different. But I like how the 0.5 stops before I start cutting into the back there. And I'm going to click the checkbox. Okay, so again, it looks like I missed one, right? So go back into my extrusion, select a new, like, make sure that I select that piece too. And I click the checkbox. Okay, so there that is. Now, like, let's say you want more of them. You're like, man, I wish I had more. Go back into your sketch. Change your 10 times to like whatever you want or whatever you had it at. Now I can do 12 of them. See, now it's only extruded like still 10 of them. So you still have to like open up your extrude one and add this section and this section in to make it work. Checkbox. Okay, and then last step here is turn off the plane that we've created. And I guess the actual last step here is to change the color. All right, so we're going to make this thing, like, I'm going to make it a black piece. So I'm going to use one of the darker grays, something like this. That's good right there. There's one of my queens. And again, these are all just like basically the same thing, different flavors. Another queen, not colored right, or yet at least. Then my third queen. Now, with this queen too, you can go through if you want, and you could individually extrude pieces coming back. You can't do multiples at a time. You can only do one, but you could cut this, and you could say maybe like 0.375 or something like that. Let's see what that looks like. All right, I don't really want to cut out the inside there, but I can click the checkbox. And now you can see like it can start to actually scallop this thing. So now I can say Shift E. I can do the same thing here. Remove it. Say 0.375. But that's, you know, and that's going to give you like something like that looking thing, all right, which it looks really great as well. So you could go around this entire thing and do that. Okay, so there, I just extruded all of those pieces back, and now I have a crown that looks like this. So again, that produced a lot of extrusions because you have to produce one for each piece because you have to be drawing flat on the surface. So when I take these things, I'm going to right click and say edit appearance. I'm going to select my color and click the checkbox. Bingo. And there's my queen. Okay. So there's drawing the queen. There's a couple queen options for her crown. So you guys can give that all a go. But in the end, again, your king and your queen should basically be matching everything except for the crown. Okay? All right. Let me know if you guys need help. We'll leave it at that. Bye-bye.